This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and constructionbusinessaccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and it's my job to help you, the construction business owner, maximize profits and eliminate chaos in your business. Today is all about maximizing productivity on the job site. If you've been on a job site recently or you've read anything about productivity in construction, it's pretty bad. All right, we don't need to go into all the McKinsey reports and what the experts are saying about productivity and how bad it is. But here's the thing. I don't see a lot of information on what to do about productivity, how to improve productivity. So in this podcast, I'm going to share with you 9 strategies that will help you boost productivity on your job site. Then I'm going to talk about a guide that you can get your hands on that has 32 productivity boosting tips for your operation. A couple of things I want to share with you before we get into that. Number one is if you're a home builder or a remodeler or a general contractor for that matter, frankly, no matter what type of work you do, you're probably dealing with profit bleeds on your projects. Maybe you're busier than ever, but you're not making as much money as you have been in the past. Or if you're like some people, you're busier than ever and you're actually losing money. That's not good. Those lines should not be crossing. And here's the deal. Builders and remodelers are busier than ever. In a lot of cases, they're making less money. And that wasn't such a big problem 6 or 8 months ago before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. But here's the deal. Things have changed. We don't know what the future will look like. Maybe you've had a fat, healthy backlog and maybe things are rolling, but things have changed. We don't know what the future looks like. So my advice to you is hoard all the profit you have in your backlog. There is profit, hopefully, in your contracts that are in backlog, and your job is to hoard the profit that's in your backlog, much like people were hoarding toilet paper in March and April of 2020 during the pandemic. So eliminate the profit bleeds, hoard the profits in your backlog. And you may be wondering, what's a profit bleed? Well, a couple of examples. Actually, if you want a deep dive, go back and look through my podcast episodes, and there's an episode with 8 profit bleeds that cause really busy contractors to lose. And just a real quick overview. Number one is schedule overruns or schedule delays, lost productivity on your job sites, which we're going to talk about. Rework is a big one. Unsolicited charity, doing work for free, what should be a change order, not getting paid for it. Supply chain inefficiencies, trade partner breakdowns, things not working well with your subcontractor operations, and then leaving money on the table when it comes to selling, not having a good sales process in place, and just not charging enough money, Go through that, go find that episode on 8 profit bleeds, and you'll find a deeper dive on that. And in that episode, I talk about how a contractor who's doing $1 million a year can easily be suffering from $100,000 a year in profit. I've talked to numerous contractors, from exterior finish contractors, site work, general contractors, home builders, electrical contractors. And when we total up those profit bleeds, it's pretty alarming. They get kind of a sick feeling when they realize how much profit they're actually bleeding out every year. And again, things have changed. Maybe you've had a really fat backlog in the future or in the past, but you don't know what the future looks like. So my advice to you is plug the profit bleeds. Keep more of the dollars that are in your backlog instead of letting those bleed out. I talked to somebody recently who said it's like my projects they're like this balloon, and the balloon is full of profit, but like one little puncture, one little event, and something happens and they poke that balloon and the profit just bleeds out. But the good news is you can change those things. And if you're a home builder or a remodeler, or for that matter, a commercial general contractor, then my number one piece of advice for you, if you don't have a system, then you need to get CoConstruct. CoConstruct is the system that will allow you to run your entire business in one place. And there are lots of features. You can go to constructionleadingedge.com/CoConstruct, no dashes or in CoConstruct, and find out all of the features. But here's what I'll share with you. A couple of quotes from people I've talked to. One was a coaching client of mine who is a custom home builder in the Northeast. Didn't have any system. He was using spreadsheets and Word documents to run his business, and he had multiple projects. And here's what he said. The ability to schedule projects using CoConstruct weeks in advance has been a game changer. He hadn't even really gotten into any of the other features, but his ability to look at all of his project schedules and schedule his trade partners weeks in advance was an absolute game changer. And then I talked to somebody from the South who's a custom home builder building large luxury homes not too long ago, and he said this: I don't want my competition to know about CoConstruct. I don't want my competition to know about CoConstruct because it gives me an edge. So if you want to get an edge up on your competitors, or you don't want to get left behind, what if your competitors are using a system like this and they're picking up customers who want to get a better experience and they want their projects delivered with fewer mistakes and on time? Then you need to have a system, okay? Building homes, doing remodeling, being a general contractor without some sort of consolidated system is not going to work much longer. So if you don't want to get left behind, then my recommendation is go to constructionleadingedge.com/co-construct. Check it out. The pricing is an absolute no-brainer. All right. At return on investment standpoint, it's an absolute no-brainer. And if you decide to sign up, make sure and tell them that you heard about CoConstruct from me, and then they'll hook you up with a bundle of templates and bonuses and other things to help you get your process and your implementation kickstarted. But I cannot recommend this system any more highly than I do. If you don't have a system, if you're currently using some amalgamation of systems, email, spreadsheets, Word documents, Dropbox, etc., you're going to do yourself a favor by getting Coke, and you're going to eliminate a lot of those profit bleeds. So go to constructionleadingedge.com/co-construct and check that out. All right, now let's talk about 9 tips you can use to maximize productivity at your job sites. All right, productivity sucks at most job sites. I've spent the better part of the last 20 years on job sites, and yes, productivity is bad, but here's a couple of thoughts. Number one, the root cause of bad productivity on job sites is generally not the people doing the work. All right, it's not the people at the end of the shovel or pulling levers on the machine or swinging hammers or banging tin on top of step ladders. If you do a root cause analysis, then you'll find that most of the root causes of poor productivity on job sites are well upstream. They're way upstream of the people actually doing the work. All right, so that's number one. Number two is, here's how you need to look at poor productivity or look at dysfunction on your job sites. That's where the gold is. Everywhere there's dysfunction, everywhere there's chaos, everywhere there's lost motion, wasted motion, rework, etc., that's gold. Because when you solve that, that means you're plugging profit bleeds and you're going to keep more profits. So actively seek out the dysfunction and the productivity issues, solve those issues, because it's going to make you money. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into 9 of the productivity tips. And I have a guide here with 32 or 33 productivity tips that you can download, a PDF for free, no email or anything required. Just stick around to the end, and I'll give you that link where you can go download that PDF and get your hands on these 9 plus the entire list of 32. So number one, my number one productivity tip: stay out of stores. Period. Stay out of stores. Shopping is incredibly expensive. Shopping during revenue-producing hours is incredibly expensive. So keep your people out of Lowe's, Home Depot, supply houses. Keep them out of gas stations. Keep them out of anywhere that they're spending time picking up materials. Just stay out of stores. And if you'll do that, then your productivity will. In fact, when somebody comes to me and says, Todd, my cash flow is bad, I'll ask, do you have employees that are self-performing work? Are you putting work in place? And if they say yes, my number one piece of advice is get out of store, because that's a cash flow killer. It just causes all sorts of problems. Your people, if you're picking up materials at 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, or running to the supply house to pick stuff up, or gassing up your trucks at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning when you could be doing revenue-producing work, you're getting hammered by opportunity. Not only the cost of having people on the clock doing that stuff, but what you're really getting hammered with is opportunity cost, which is the missed revenue that you could be bringing in with that time. I've talked about opportunity cost in the past. I'm not going to get into that. You can go find out some more about that, but stay out of store. Make sure you understand who your revenue-producing people are, and then keep them out of stores. Keep them on the job site. Figure out ways to keep them doing revenue producing work. All right. Number 2 is to stock commonly used tools, materials, and consumables either at the job site, at your shop, or on your trucks. Establish an inventory list of what should be on hand at all times and make someone responsible for checking that inventory. Remember this, if it's important, it needs to be inspected. Keep an inventory, establish an inventory list of what should be on every truck, what should be at the shop, what should be at the job site, what should be in the gang box, what should be in somebody's tool bag, all the way down to that level. Set up a checklist and an inventory list, and then check it. Make somebody responsible, and then inspect their work. I had a company that I ran that got up to about 50 people, and we had a checklist at the shop. Every day, my shop assistant's job was to check the inventory of all the materials that I wanted to make sure was available or were available in the shop. I didn't want guys going to the supply house or hooking stuff up. I wasn't really concerned about tracking which job or which work order these materials went to. I just wanted to make sure that they had them. So small consumable items, flags, paint, survey stakes, blades, sawzall blades, cut-off saw blades, safety equipment, that kind of stuff. Always wanted that available. And set up an inventory list, make somebody responsible. And remember, if it's important, it needs to be inspected. Number 3, I just made a LinkedIn post about this, and there was a study that found, there's an article that I found where it talks about a superintendent for a masonry company took cell phones from all of their workers one morning when they showed up and said, I'm going to collect your cell phone. Let me hold on to it. I'll give it back to you at lunch. At lunch, the superintendent passed the phones back out and then asked everybody, how many notifications did you get this morning while I was holding your phone? One guy received 100 notifications. Another guy got 60 notifications. That's 60 buzzes, beeps, ringtones, texts, Snapchat, Facebook, Amazon, whatever notifications. 60 to 100 distractions in a morning. So my next tip for boosting productivity and eliminating profit bleeds is to establish a policy on personal phone usage at the job site. Consider prohibiting personal phones on their person while they're working. Think about this. When you go into a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's, do you see those people working at the checkout line talking on their phone, texting, checking Facebook, etc.? No, because they have a policy. So if McDonald's and Chick-fil-A don't allow personal cell phone usage while on the clock, why should you? Think about the safety implications, the productivity implications that come from people having personal cell phones. And I'm not talking about company cell phones. I understand there has to be communication, but to a certain point. The proliferation of phones and communication on job sites are killing productivity. So come up with a policy on personal phone use. The company I ran, I set up a policy that said no personal phones on the job site. Keep them in your truck, in your toolbox, put them in the gang box. You can check them on breaks, check them out. I actually had people thank me. They said, thank you for doing that, because their wife or their girlfriend constantly bugged them throughout the day. So, and it was a huge productivity. And the question is, well, what do you do to communicate with guys? I provided a basic, cheap flip phone. They could text, they could make phone calls, and that's it. That solved. And not everybody needed a phone. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4 is to have daily crew huddles. Spend 5 minutes at the beginning of each day telling your crew what the priorities are for the day. Answer this question, all right? This is a question that you need to be able to answer. The answer to this question needs to be clear in every person's head that's on your crew. What does winning look like today? Your job is to answer that question. Then what does winning look like today? In this daily huddle, you can spend 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I'm not talking about a coordination meeting. I'm not talking about a tailgate or a toolbox talk. I'm talking about just 5 minutes answering the question, what does winning look like today? Go over the plan for the day, talk about safety issues, deliveries, changes, visitors, what's coming up, etc. Then ask this question. Help them answer the question, what does winning look like? And then you ask the question, what do you need to make that happen? Number 5 is batching communication. All right, I've shared this at a few workshops, and it's been a game changer for people. Think about how much time you spend on the phone, looking at email, talking to people on the phone, texting people on the phone. Think about how much time you spend communicating with your guys and gals on the job site. So going back to the phone policy issue, a lot of the reason people aren't productive is because they're on the job site trying to get work done, but they're talking to people in the office or in the trailer constantly. Whenever somebody in the office, whenever the project manager or the admin or the safety coordinator or whoever has a question in the middle of a work shift, they just, while they're thinking about it, they call. And then they break their flow. So batch communication. What that means is you establish 2 to 3 times a day that you will talk or meet with your team. This could be in person, this could be by phone, by Zoom, whatever. But establish 2 to 3 times a day that you will talk or meet with your team leads. Both of you should hold your questions and issues until those scheduled times. So what this looks like is you say, hey, lead carpenter, we're going to talk every morning at 7:30, and then we're going to talk at 2 p.m. And here are the things that we're going to talk about. If I have a question or an issue that I want to let you know about, we're going to talk about it at one of those 2 times. And the only time that I'm going to communicate with you outside of that is if it's an emergency. Same thing for you. If you have questions, then hold them until our appointed time. We're going to talk, okay? And another podcast episode you probably want to listen to is episode 89, where I talk about the difference between the builder schedule and the manager schedule. Managers tend to think about their time in blocks, 15 minutes, 30-minute meetings, 1-hour meetings, and they can shift from one thing to the other very quickly. And where we have problems is when managers on the job site or managers in the office start expecting or thinking that the people building stuff in the field operate like they do. So if you've ever built something, you know once you get things laid out, you get things started and you get in this flow, if you get interrupted, you don't just pick right back up where you left off. You have to reorient yourself, go back, check where you're at, check what you've done, and then start back over. So there's some rework and lost time. Not only the time lost from the phone call or the text, but lost time in going back and regrouping. And then imagine if that happens a couple of times an hour. It's not hard to imagine how much productivity gets killed there. So batch communication. And this will help you, this will help your people in the field be more productive, and it's going to help you. My recommendation is you batch your communication with your employees, batch it with your trade partners, batch communication with people in your office, batch communication with your clients. Don't be a call center. Block out time and say, hey, we're going to talk, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. I'm going to send you an update once a week. And that's where all of your questions are going to be answered. So don't call me. Or if they do call you or they do text you, you tell them, check your weekly update. Use CoConstruct. You can send reports that way. Batch communication. And speaking of increasing your productivity, if you're managing a team or managing a company, here's a personal productivity hack that has been a real game changer for a lot of people that are using it. It's 60-minute deep work sessions. And you physically go somewhere else away from the office, go to a coffee shop, a public library. Some people I've talked to actually go to a park. They open up the laptop, they put the phone on airplane mode. They tell everybody, I'm off the grid for the next hour, and they do deep work. They do the stuff that's really going to move the needle for them. So get out of the office, go somewhere else. Maybe if it's toward the end of the day, then go to a cigar bar, reward yourself for an hour of deep work with a nice 2-ounce pour of Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Just something to consider. But deep work session. Get away from the office. Make sure everybody knows you're off the grid and get your deep work done. Number 7. This is a great one I heard from a custom home builder down in South Carolina. He creates the term he used is visual scopes of work. So for guys in his particular situation, he has a lot of non-English speaking workers. So detailed specs don't do a lot of good. Communication, trying to point things out, doesn't do a lot of good. So what he did was to develop visual scopes of work for some of the most problematic items. So what this would look like for you would be, think about the issue that where you have the most rework, or you have the most question, the most problems, and then take pictures of a proper installation. Okay, so maybe it's garage door header framing, or firewall framing, or in-wall blocking, or specifically the control joints around a dock level or pit in a distribution center. This is one that I've dealt with a lot in the past. If you don't want your concrete to crack, you don't want re-entrant corners, there are certain things to do. But the idea is take a picture of a proper installation. This is what it should look like. Point to the details. Maybe even take a picture of a wrong installation, put a red X on it. So if you have specific issues where you're having problems, take a picture of it, point to what's right, point to what's most important, show people what it actually looks like when it's done. And you can make those available to your crews. You can use Company Cam, for example. They've sponsored the podcast in the past. It's a great photo sharing app, but Company Cam is a great way to do it. You can do the same thing at CoConstruct. You can do the same thing in a variety of different formats, but think about this. Take a picture. Think about doing this once. Instead of somebody sending you a message, and then every time they have that question, you have to find the picture and send it to them. Create a central repository of that information, and then tell people, go to the repository, go to the visual scopes of work folder on fill in the blank, but stop being the bottleneck for information. Visual scopes of work, game changer. Number 8 is gather your team periodically and challenge them with something like this. Go through an exercise like the following. Pick a task that you do frequently and then ask them, what would it take to do it in half the time? This process typically takes 10 hours to do this. What would it take to do it in 5 hours? Maybe it takes a week. Ask, what would it take to do it in 3 days? Take all the constraints off the table, take all the limitations off the table. You have unlimited manpower, unlimited equipment, unlimited whatever, unlimited planning time. And ask them, what would it take to do this in half the time? And while you may not find a feasible way to save 50% of the time, you may find something that will save 10%. Maybe you won't get it done in half the time, but you'll get it done in 90% of the time. And that's still a move in the right direction. And that gets your people thinking, how can we be more productive? And there's just a lot of good things that happen when you ask people, what would it take, all right? Eliminate the phrase, why can't we, from your vocabulary and replace it with, what would it take to do that? And then the last tip is, this is the place that I start. When people bring me into their operation to do a 2-day deep dive because they're having profitability issues or projects are over schedule, over budget, there's chaos, culture's screwed up, people are frustrated. I've done that so many times that here's where I start. If somebody brings me in and they explain that they're having problems on their job site, I'll say, let's talk about your handoff, because that's where 80 to 90% of the problems come into play. It's where if you do a root cause analysis, you'll find that 80 to 90% of the problems on your job sites are the symptom of a poorly executed handoff. So nail the handoffs. Think about the phases of your project where there's a handoff from one person or one group to the next. A big one is the handoff from estimating to job site, from pre-construction to construction. Think about a lot of the turbulence and chaos you're having. It's very likely a result of a poor handoff. So my advice is nail the handoffs on your project and start doing a better job nailing the handoffs. It will eliminate a lot of that chaos that is killing your productivity. Okay, so there are 9 out of the 32 productivity boosters that are going to help you eliminate the chaos that's killing your productivity. If you want to get your hands on this entire list, these 9 plus the entire list of 32 or 33, then go to buildermasterclass.com/tips, TIPS, buildermasterclass.com/tips. You can download that PDF guide with the entire list of productivity tips you can use. You don't have to put an email address in. I don't want anything from you. You can just go click the button, download that PDF, and be off to the races. And one other thing I want to tell you about, if you're a home builder, remodeler, or general contractor, you may be interested in this. This guide, this list of 32 tips, is just a tiny little piece of a masterclass that I did with my good friend Spencer Paget, formerly the builder in residence at CoConstruct. And we did a 6-week masterclass. We created this 6-week masterclass for home builders, remodelers, and general contractors. Frankly, it will help everybody, but it's designed for people using CoConstruct. It will show you how to maximize the bottom line profitability of your operation. We identify the profit bleeds that are killing your productivity, that are killing your profits, and we talk about several things, including, let me just walk through some of the topics that you'll learn about. Here's what you're going to get, just a sample of what you'll learn in the masterclass: how to nail the handoff from the office to the job site. We do a deep dive on how to set your processes up to nail the handoffs, how to reduce schedule overruns so you can get on to the next project and have fewer disappointed customers, how to eliminate one of my most least favorite things, which is unsolicited charity, doing the work for free. We talk a lot about how you can set up a process to make sure you get paid for 100% of the work that you do, how to boost productivity in the field. You'll get this guide that we talked about, plus a bunch of other training videos on how you can empower your team, how to delegate like a ninja master. Let's see, how to sell at higher margins, how to streamline your trade partner operations. You basically get an entire masterclass on setting up a system to streamline your trade partner operations, how to leverage your time, how to assign risk, lots of other stuff. But if you are interested in that, then there's a link you can go to, which is buildermasterclass.com. That's buildermasterclass.com. And if enrollment is open, you can grab your enrollment, grab your seat for the CoConstruct Masterclass. If it's not open, then you'll be able to put your name on the wait list and be notified when the things do open up. And you may be wondering, what am I going to get out of this masterclass? Well, I'll just share a couple of testimonials from other builders and remodelers and general contractors who've gone through the Builder Masterclass, gone through the CoConstruct Masterclass that's available over at buildermasterclass.com. And here's what Jerry McDaniel said: if you were a professional athlete, no one would question if you have a coach to improve yourself and your game. You must invest in yourself. You gentlemen have delivered invaluable experience and information. Kip McNeil said, this course is more than just a class in CoConstruct that will make you a better builder. Benjamin Blee said, it's like years worth of learning on the job experience in 6 weeks. And Aaron Steffens said, I've already changed my way of thinking. We're getting better at running the business and not letting the business run us. Such a great feeling. So if you're looking for something like that, you want to put systems in place to streamline your business, then 2 things that I can offer for you. One is get a system. CoConstruct is my go-to recommendation. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/CoConstruct. Check it out. Right now it's ridiculously affordable. And then if you want to put rocket fuel on your business, then bundle CoConstruct with the CoConstruct Masterclass, which is available over at buildermasterclass.com. So don't forget, get your hands on these 9 tips that we talked about, plus the entire list of 32. Go to buildermasterclass.com/tips, TIPS. Thanks for the ratings and the reviews. If you get some value out of this podcast, if you could do me a favor, leave a rating and a review, or one or the other, and then share this podcast with somebody who would get some value out of it. I would appreciate it. And if there's anything I can do for you, go to constructionleadingedge.com. There's a place where you can contact me, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much.